Welcome to the Creation of Living podcast. I'm your host, Heather Nichols, and I'm delighted you're here. Join me for conversations and inspirations for creating way more in every area of your life and living. Welcome, everybody, to the Creation of Living podcast. We are here this week with the wonderful and irresistible Mr. Christopher Hughes, who is an access consciousness facilitator. He is a right voice for you facilitator and facilitator facilitator trainer. He runs the Antique Guild in Australia and lots of other things too. A Joy Business Facilitator.
That's right.
All the things.
I have lots of different hats that I wear.
Yes, you do. So welcome. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you so much, Heather. I'm excited. I haven't seen you in forever because I've been in Australia for a long time.
I know. I haven't seen. Yes, I'm excited too. Yeah. And so you had reached out to me about this topic of being irresistible. And, there's a lot of different places we can go from that. And I know you mentioned that you refer to quite often, and I've heard you do this, to a question that I asked Gary Douglas, the founder of Access Consciousness, years ago in a facilitator class. It was basically like, what makes people, what makes your classes basically irresistible? Like, you put up a class and I'm there. I know I'm going to be there. It's no question about it, And he said, having no point of view. And that was just a game changer, right? I know for a lot of us.
Yeah.
Different.
Well,
yeah.
If you really break it down, he's such a genius in the way he says those little one lines or one answer. And it's like, huh. And what I've discovered from facilitating Right Voice and looking more at that conversation, because we've all been there at classes with Gary or Dane or whatever. For those of you who don't know, we're talking about access consciousness classes. And Gary Douglas is the founder and he co-creates that modality with Dr. Dane here. And there's, you and I both probably, and some of our listeners have been to hundreds, if not thousands of different seminars.
Yeah.
And occasionally there's like a line that just goes bang and sums up a topic or sheds some awareness in an area of life that makes you go, oh. And when he said that to you about having no point of view, and that's what makes him irresistible, I had to ask him more about it later. And he said, well, points of view are where resistance come from. And what being irresistible really is having a place in your world where you resist nothing.
Boom.
Yeah.
We could end right there,
Yeah. And that's all for today. Thank you for joining, listeners.
Exactly. Shortest podcast ever. And especially right now, there is so much resistance in the world. There's so many, there's so much polarization and people taking sides on this whole crazy topic of pandemic and vaccine and all this stuff going on,
Yeah.
And it's like, it's two sides of the same coin, there's no different possibility.
Right. There's a strong point of view, no matter which way.
Yeah.
And that's where you develop resistance and have to make the other side wrong. And what I see really confusing people is there's this big group, let's take the example of politics, because you brought it up. Once upon a time, it would be really easy to go, well, I'm on this side of politics and you're on that side of politics. And these are our traditional beliefs on either side. So those are the reasons that we have to fight one another and make each other wrong. But then I'm noticing the people who maybe traditionally vote Democrat are actually aligning and agreeing with the points of view of Republicans over things like masks and vaccines. And that is that people are so confused. They're like, but I don't want to believe the Republicans are correct. But I agree with them. What do
Yeah.
I do?
Yeah.
And there's this space of being like, oh, it's not so black and white anymore.
Yeah.
But yeah, what I would really like us to all get to is like, I think the confusion for people in that particular example is we're looking for a place to agree with a particular set of points of view so we feel comfortable
Yeah.
and can, based on that, resist all of these other people and make them wrong. Funny, with a topic like Irresistible, you'd think we're going to talk about being snake charmers and having everyone fall at our feet and just having this like amazing capacity to manipulate everybody with our irresistible charm. But it's this whole idea of resistance and not wanting to align and agree with certain points of view and wanting to resist others. And where do you fit in that? But that's just it. You don't actually have to take a side.
Yeah.
And when you don't take a side and you can't be defined by a particular set of points of view, people are like, who's that?
Yeah.
But the funny thing is, what I've been looking at recently, and I heard Dane mention something similar the other day, is you don't have to have no point of view. Because there's a few different things that I want to show people here. There's a difference between having a fixed point of view where something is right or wrong and being like, this is the right way. Vaccines and masks are the right way. And you can have the opposite point of view where they're wrong. So that's just being fixed in a point of view. Then you can have no point of view where you're just sort of like Switzerland in the middle going, I don't know. I've got no point of view. Like it's like what happens when you talk to your friends and you say, where do you want to have dinner? And they go,
It's like, yeah. If it's access people, they all go, I don't have a point of view.
Yeah. Okay. Easy. So let's get sushi. Yeah. But then you can have a point of view and it be interesting, where your point of view isn't right, it isn't wrong, you're not fixed in it as the right way. It's sort of like, have you ever tried to cook with somebody who has like a method, and that's the way you cook a particular thing and no deviation, and if you try and step them outside of their comfort zone, their OCD kicks in and they freak out about it? That's having a strong point of view. But you can have a point of view and not be fixed in it. And when you're not fixed in it, if a point of view comes along that you are aware will create greater, you can go, okay, I'm going to change and choose that instead.
Yeah.
Does this make sense?
Well, it makes me think of this story that that Gary and Dane tell a lot, where they were walking one day and they were going to go get something to eat, and Dane said, let's go get sushi. And Gary said, I don't like sushi. And Dane said something like, well, that's an interesting point of view, or something like that. And Gary just went, oh, never mind, let's go get sushi. Just the willingness to go, oh, okay, I don't need to do that anymore. Like, and you get to have choice. You get to actually have all the possibilities, because there could be like the most epic sushi place right there, and you're like, no, I don't do that, so then you don't get to have that.
Yeah. So I had dinner once with a couple of friends, and we were at a Japanese restaurant on the theme of sushi. And this particular pair of friends are vegans. And it was the kind of restaurant where, you order a little dish and you share and you have a few drinks, and then you order another dish and you just kind of have lots of little bites and tastes. And I saw my friend whisper to the waitress to bring another dish, and out comes this big plate of raw Wagyu beef. And I was like, hang on, you're vegan. How does this work? And she was like, yeah, but it's Wagyu. That's different. I was like, okay. So apparently You don't have to be fixed in your point of view about being vegan or vegetarian either. You can change. So, but the thing that the dot that I would like to connect for people out there listening is, how does that create this place where you are suddenly magnetic?
Mm-hmm.
It's like,
Yeah.
I get that, or people probably from the examples that we've given, you can see how when you're not presenting a fixed point of view for people to resist or butt up against and fight you for, there's this space that you are where people are like, okay, there's nothing to fight.
Mm-hmm.
It's sort of like as a kid, if people try and bully you for being a certain way, if you have allowance for whatever that thing is, be it your size or your geeky or whatever, if you're just like, you own it, they can't make you wrong for it anymore.
Yeah.
So there's that place where there's nothing to resist in you anymore. Now, the other side of it, where you actually start to attract people into your life or create a question in their world, is the next thing I want to talk about. Because Heather, I don't know if you realize, but that one conversation that you had with Gary in that class resonated through my world in a lot of different ways. And it's inspired quite a few conversations, because later then I went to him and I said, okay, so Gary, if that's what being irresistible is, what's charisma?
Yeah.
And he said, easy. It's the willingness to be seen and never requiring it.
Boom.
Yeah. Like, how many people are out there in the media, in social media, going, look at me, look at me, look at me, look at me, look at me. And they have this carefully presented and curated image of themselves that they're presenting because they require the validation of your attention. But if you don't have that, how much more inviting is it?
A millionfold. I mean, it's also like where you, like you were saying before, where someone goes, who is that? It's like, because you're being so different than the way it works with social media, the way everybody does social media, and that it's like when you're willing to be that different, it's people notice it, like you stand out because you don't care if you stand out.
You're just like, yep, look, that's fine. And if you don't, that's fine too. Yeah, it's amazing. I mean, I adore Gary Douglas. He blows me away. The other thing that he did that really showed me this was I was listening to him do a radio show with somebody, and the interviewer was being that energy of, I'm so interesting. Listen to me. Aren't I cool? Wow, wow, wow. Look at my image. And she was on this long rambling tirade, calling it a question for Gary. And when she finished proving how interesting she was and said, and what do you think about that, Gary? He'd fallen asleep. And he was snoring live on the radio.
Oh my gosh.
And for so many people, they would be like mortified and so worried about what people thought of them. But he really didn't care at all what anybody thought. He was just bored and fell asleep.
I love that, man. That is so cool. Yeah. Yeah. It's like not having to hook into anybody's world or anybody's reality or needs or any of it, and you can give people what they desire or they think they require if you get that's going to create greater, but you don't have to, and you can be that, interesting point of view with it.
Yeah.
I'm like, God, the world needs so much more of that right now.
Yeah. How much, like, imagine a world where instead of looking for a point of view to align with, like in politics with the vaccines, etc., instead of looking for what is right from your point of view, what if you just looked at what was the lightest for you? It's like if you're not interested in the vaccine, suddenly you become an anti-vaxxer.
Right.
But like for me, I actually am not interested in the vaccine, not because I have an issue with vaccines. These ones just, when I ask my body, it says no.
Yeah.
And that's enough for me. It's
Yeah.
not about the conspiracy of who's trying to control us or any of that other stuff. To me, it's as cut and dry and simple as, body, do you want this? No? Okay, fine.
Yeah.
And allow that to be interesting, as we said before, rather than the righteousness of it being the correct way that everyone should adhere to.
Different world.
You're a different world.
You are too. I'm like, oh, time for cocktails.
Yes, yes. And you are the cocktail maven.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I think this is actually like, this has been like boomy and perfect. And I want to take your class. What's your class?
So
Tell me
it's
about
coming,
it.
it's coming up. It's called The Art of Being Irresistible. I've made it at a time, because I'm in Australia, I've made it at a time online that it works for those of you in the United States or South America, North America. It's my 9:30 in the morning starting on September the 1st. Now that would be for you guys the 31st of August in sort of middle of the afternoon. I don't have the time and date directly in my head just now, but yeah, depending on where you are. And if you want to know more, if you want to know more information, you can go to my website, which is mrchristopherhughes.com, and under events, there's a number of things that I've got coming up that you can have a look at, but that is definitely one of them.
Cool. And, since this is a podcast, you might be listening to this in like 5 years. And, it might still be on the website available for sale. Who knows?
Exactly. Exactly.
Yeah. But if not, something else.
If not, I hope that the conversation that we had, regardless, has some tools in it and some information that assist you to create a life that works for you. Because I love the title of your podcast, Creation of Living, no matter what.
Yeah. Yep. I mean, this is, timeless conversation for sure.
Yay.
So we'll put all the links in the show notes and stuff. So it's easy to click if people want more info or just more review. So yeah.
Wonderful.
Thank you.
You have such a beautiful, easy, elegant space.
Aw, thank you.
See, like, this is what we've been talking about, is you have this ease about you where there's no need to fill the space with chatter to make it interesting. It's just an energy that you be, and that is alluring.
Thank you. You too. Yeah, very grateful.
Me too.
All right, everybody, well, enjoy, and thanks for you. And if you liked this episode, share it with your peeps, and we'll see you next time.
Thanks, Heather.
Thank you for joining me for the Creation of Living podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, please share it and leave me a review. If you would like more, you can find all kinds of resources and upcoming events at heathernichols.com. Until next time, remember, my beautiful friends, the world thrives when you do.